Hey guys, so we just finished talking about taxes and fees and how that can affect our lives, our city, our state, our nation, as well as our budget. So that brings us to this little discussion question. Is it better for a family to spend on a want or to save some income after obtaining all of their needs? In other words, is it better to go out and get what you want since you have the money or to save your income after making sure that all of your needs are met to see if you have enough money for that want or to make sure you have enough for needs in the future. So I want you to think about that question, and at the end of this lesson, you will have a chance to comment your answer. So, in today's lesson, we're going to be looking at city housing for these immigrants that came into the United States either from Europe or Asia, and the living conditions that they had to live in and some of the situations they had to go through. So now that we know budgets were tight for poor immigrants in the early 1900s, let's investigate what everyday life was like for poor immigrants living in city housing. All right, so we want to be able to define the word tenement after we read this article. So you can click on this little link on the slides and it is going to pull us up to this website called Digital History, and it's going to tell us about the tenements. It says the immigrant poor lived in overcrowded, unsanitary, and unsafe housing. All right, let's just go back and look at some of these adjectives. Overcrowded. That means that there's more people than there is room. Okay, it's very, very crowded. Unsanitary. That means it's not clean. And unsafe. That means it's not even safe. It said many lived in tenements, dumbbell shaped brick apartment buildings, 4 to 6 stories in height. Okay, so they're going to live in these small brick apartment buildings that can be up to 6 stories high. It says in 1900, 2/3 of Manhattan's residents lived in tenements. All right, so they're living in these brick apartments that are really crowded, not clean, not safe. It says in one New York tenement, up to 18 people lived in each apartment. That's a lot of people in a one room apartment. Each apartment had a wood burning stove and a concrete bathtub in the kitchen, which, when covered with planks, also served as the dining table. All right, that's pretty gross. You bathe where you also cook your food. Before 1901, residents used rear yard outhouses, so they had an outhouse to go use the restroom. Afterward, two common toilets were installed on each floor. All right, so you would be in your apartment and you would probably have to share that with 20 other people. It says in the summer, children slept on the fire escape. So children were sleeping on, near places where fires were built. And it says tenants typically paid $10 a month in rent, which was a lot considering their monthly budget could be around $40. In tenements, many apartments were dark and airless because the interior windows faced narrow light shafts, if there were interior windows at all. So some of these didn't even have windows, and probably not electricity either. So it was dark, and there was not a lot of airflow, which means that a lot of germs could grow and stay stagnant in that air. It says, with a series of newspaper articles and then a book entitled How the Other Half Lives, Jacob Rails turned tenement reform into a crusade. All right, so it was his um, goal to be able to help the way that these immigrants are living in these tenements. Okay, it says too many late 19th century Americans um, dealt with this corruption. There were a lot of people that didn't agree with helping out a lot of these people who were suffering living in these homes. A lot of the construction companies just wanted to make their money. They weren't worried about their buildings being safe. It says the corruption was breathtaking in its breadth and baldness. A carpenter was paid $360,751 for 1 month's labor with very little woodwork. So all of the construction people were getting a whole lot of money and charging a lot of money for these tenements that were unsafe and unclean. Okay, as we keep going here, let's go to the next part. Well, it looks like that's it. It says at the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th centuries, Urban reformers would seek to redeem the city through the beautification campaign, city planning, rationalizing of city government, and increasing in city services. All right, so um, towards the end of the 19th century, they're beginning to work on getting these housing situations more clean, more safe, beautifying the city, planning ways to make sure that all areas are safe, and increasing city services that are available to those in need. All right, so if we jump back over to our slides, how would you define a tenement? I want you to comment your definition. Now, remember, this is the place where an immigrant may live. I want you to comment your definition of a tenement on today's post. And tomorrow, we're actually going to view some of these tenements.